The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. Hi everybody. Today I want to talk to you all about healing from your trauma with Jesus, or healing from trauma as a Christian. And I want to share with you what I've learned so far on my journey, because recently I've been dealing with a lot of traumatic flashbacks. And I thought, why not make a video about this? Because personally, I haven't seen that many Christians talk about trauma or PTSD and the role it plays in their walk with Christ. And so I hope that if you are someone that struggles with trauma, that struggles with PTSD, or maybe knows someone that struggles with these things, I hope that what I have to share will be helpful to you. But yeah, PTSD is not something that I openly talk about on this channel. It is something that has fizzled out throughout the years, but there are times where it does hit, and while it won't have any major impacts on my mood or in my walk with God, it's still a very disturbing thing to experience, because one of the symptoms that I struggled with a lot when it came with PTSD was rumination, which was basically playing flashbacks in your head of what you've went through, but not realizing that those flashbacks are flashbacks. Like, you'll be living out these memories as if they were really happening right now, and it can be very scary. It can bring up feelings that are not very pleasant, and it's very important, if you do struggle with PTSD or you have been through traumatic things, to be able to ground yourself and know when to recognize when you are ruminating. Another symptom of PTSD that I had was migraines. I would struggle with the most brutal migraines. I'm talking like these headaches I could not do anything. It would just be this throbbing pain that eventually caused me to go blind. I did suffer from temporary blindness because of these migraines that are being triggered from PTSD. And if you're wondering what the heck I went through that would warrant such crazy migraines, I'll link my testimony in the description. But an amazing thing that came out of dealing with that is that I saw the healing power of Christ. And when I was going through this stage of my PTSD where I was getting these migraines, I did not know Jesus. I did not know Christ. I knew God existed, but I wasn't locked in with him. I just wore a cross and I called it a day. But these migraines would get so bad that I eventually went to the hospital to get it checked out, because I was so worried that I had like a tumor or something with how painful it was. But the doctor quickly realized that what I was going through was due to the traumatic experiences that I had went through, and so she had prescribed me with something that I wasn't really comfortable taking, but it really was my last resort. And she also prescribed therapy, which was great. And I just remember getting home and not wanting to have to resort to medication. I'm not against taking those things, but something inside me just knew like there had to have been another way to stop these headaches, especially since there was nothing really wrong with me except for the stress that I was going through. And so the final thing I could think of doing before deciding to take that prescription was getting on my knees and praying to the Lord and asking God to take away my pain. I prayed to him even though I wasn't used to praying, even though I wasn't used to asking him for things. But based on what I had gone through, I knew there was some power in bowing down and asking God for help. And so that's exactly what I did. And after months of dealing with these migraines, a few days after I had prayed, they never came back again. And I didn't have to take the prescription, which was a bonus for me because I really didn't want to take it. And so that's a little testimony for you on how the Lord healed me from the physical symptoms of my trauma, but the emotional aspect of it did take longer to heal from. I feel like the emotional part of trauma, healing from that alone is a journey in itself, especially when it comes to dealing with flashbacks or having triggers or having to go about your daily life with that cloud looming over your head. And something that I want to remind you of and hopefully bring you some comfort in is that when you're healing through trauma and healing through PTSD, that Jesus walks with you through it. One verse that I really love and that I cling on to whenever I'm dealing with flashbacks or other symptoms is Psalm 23 verse 4, which says, "Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me." When it comes to dealing with trauma and dealing with it when you're walking with Christ, it is very important to remember that Jesus walks with you through it. We're not dealing with a God that just watches us suffer from the sidelines. We're dealing with a God that walks with us through our suffering, that understands our suffering. Whenever I would deal with all these anxieties or sadness or that looming cloud of stress, whenever I would face these PTSD symptoms, I would always remember that Jesus understands me because he's been through that stress. He's dealt with fear. He's dealt with humiliation. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was a man of grief. He carried a larger weight than any of us would ever have to carry in this world. And that's not to diminish what we've went through, but it's to comfort us in knowing that everything that we could ever deal with, he understands. And not only does he understand, but he is with us through it. He is close to the brokenhearted. He saves those that are crushed in spirit. By drawing close to him and remaining in his love and accepting his love, because I feel like sometimes we don't want to accept it. Sometimes we just tell ourselves that God isn't there, or we base it off of our feelings. And that's a huge lie, because he is there and he is always there. We just have to draw near to him. Kind of like how Elijah was depressed under that tree. Something that is helpful in drawing you closer to the Lord when you are dealing with these things is seeing how he shows up for you, whether it be providing you with food, giving you time to rest, encouraging you to rest, surrounding you with people that will help you, maybe blessing you with something to smile about, blessing you with friends or an experience for you to enjoy. There are so many ways that the Lord shows up for us when we are dealing with trauma. We just have to open up our eyes to see it. When you're dealing with PTSD or trauma, I think it's important to also note that healing from it is a step-by-step process. It's not something that you're just going to get over in a day or get over the moment you find Christ. Again, it's something that he walks us through, and what I find so amazing is that the things that Jesus teaches us coincide with the steps it takes to heal from trauma. Like, for example, Christ reminds us to forgive those that have hurt us. And personally, I have found that forgiveness and not seeking revenge or not wishing ill onto others has been such a healing part of my journey through PTSD. Because before I knew Christ, I would be very angry. I would deal with such built-up resentment, and I didn't realize how much it was hurting me. But learning to deal with that anger, learning to forgive, learning to be patient, these are all things that Christ teaches us that can help you on your walk and on your journey of healing through trauma. And again, it doesn't come easily. It's not something that we learn in a day. I think in order to forgive, it took me months of trying to understand why, months of trying to wrap my head around the idea of why I need to forgive just because God told me to. But like I said, it is a journey. And as long as you stay close to him, you are strengthened through it. He will give you his wisdom through it. And with those, through his power, it does get better and those wounds will heal. One last comforting thing that you can do that can help you through that healing process with God is reading through different stories of God's people, because I feel like certain individuals in the Word have gone through so much trauma. Like, look at Joseph or David or Job. I feel like the story of Job is so insane, but also very inspiring. And I think reading through these stories and seeing what they do in terms of how they go to God and how they pray and how the Lord shows up for them, first and foremost, that can be very helpful when we're dealing with trauma or PTSD. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. And I hope that by sharing my journey and sharing what I went through and what has helped me deal with this on my walk with Christ, that it helps you, or can help those around you, because again, I feel like it's not something that is that commonly spoken about, or maybe I'm just not seeing it. But regardless, I have a prayer request form in my description if you need prayer about this, and my DMs are always open on Instagram if you want to reach out to me. I will be praying for you. Please take care of yourself and remember that God cares for you, that He loves you, and that He is with you through everything.